So you're thinking about getting your first tarantula, but how to pick one, which one are aggressive, and how to take care of it. Today we'll answer all those questions. Alright, now let's get right into it. The first question I see a lot when people first start thinking about getting a tarantula is, how do I know the one I'm interested in is aggressive? And what is its temperament? There's actually one simple rule to help you figure that out. Most tarantula in the world are divided into two categories, New World and Old World. What is New World and Old World? North America, Central America, South America, New Zealand, Australia. These are New World. Everywhere else are Old World. And tarantulas from these two categories are actually quite different. New World tarantula tend to be much more mild in temperament, and they're much more reluctant to bite. When they feel threatened, instead they will kick the hair off their abdomen called the urticating hair. And you might be like, just hair, what's so dangerous? And you're right, if you keep your distance, these hair kind of just get kicked up, go in the air, come down, nothing really happens. But if it gets into your eyes or skin, you're gonna have a really bad time. Alright, that was New World. On the other hand, Old World lacks the urticating hair I just talked about. Instead, they're much more willing to bite to defend themselves. And their temperament are usually much more skittish and they bolt easily. They also happen to be very fast most of the time. And that's why most of the Old World species are labeled as more for advanced hobbyists and not recommended for beginners. Does that mean we just can't keep Old World species as a pet? No, not at all. I have some Old World species myself. That just means if you're looking for your first tarantula, maybe get a New World first and get one later. Also, remember this New World, Old World guideline thing.
The code is more what you'd call guidelines than actual rules.
Once you've decided which species you want to get, you should still look it up and do your research, understand the specific tarantula that you're getting. Alright, now you've picked your tarantula and you want to give it a comfortable home. What to do next? First, find out if it's arboreal or a land-dwelling species. If it's arboreal species, you want to create a vertical container. If it's a land-dwelling species, a plastic box like this one will do. As for the size of the container, it really depends on the size of the tarantula you're getting. There's no definite rule for this, but for me, I would like to keep a box that's at least able to fit 4 to 5 of the spiders itself, including the legs fully expanded. Once you have the container, you can start filling it with substrate. After doing some research, the general consensus for the best substrate for tarantula is coconut fiber. I would stay away from the substrate that are usually labeled for reptiles, like the thick bark or sand. Those are usually not good for the claw tarantula feet. Those are meant for bearded dragons or turtles and other large reptiles. However, if you have a spiderling, I would actually add more substrate and use a more vertical setup like this one, because spiderling usually likes to dig their own burrow, so this way you give them more substrate to work with to create their little hideout that they like to make. So after you fill the substrate, you can provide them something to hide in. Anything will work, tree bark. For me, I use a little glass container for my Mexican redleg, and it seems to really like it. It usually always stays in it. I know a lot of hobbyists makes incredible terrarium to house their tarantulas, and it's almost like its own little process, and you can go really far with it as well. Now onto what to feed them. There are usually 3 common feeder out there: crickets, the roach, and the mealworms. Crickets are a really common one. You can find them almost in any reptile stores, but the downside is they can get pretty noisy when they're growing. And I've heard they carry parasites that are really bad for tarantulas, so I personally keep away from that. The next is the roach. And don't leave. I promise these are different than the crazy roach that you see flying around your kitchen. These are Turkish roaches or dubia roaches. They don't fly and they're really bad at climbing. These roaches are what I feed my own tarantula. They're really easy to take care of as well, and compared to crickets, they don't make noise. The downside for these guys is they can get smelly sometimes and they run really fast. And at the end of the day, there are still cockroaches, and you just kind of hard to like cockroaches. Lastly are the worms. These are for the hobbyists that can't stand anything that run, like the cricket or roaches. Good part, they're really slow and they reproduce really fast. They also come in different sizes, so you can find the right size for your tarantula. Which brings me to my point of finding the right size of food for your tarantula. You don't want to feed anything that's bigger than the body size of the spider. And for spiderling, you want to go even smaller. I know it could be hard to find really tiny size to feed your spiderling if it's really small, but don't worry, spiderling are willing to take pre-killed food because in the wild they scavenge as well. In Taiwan, keeping tarantula is still a really niche hobby, so there isn't a tarantula store that I know that you can visit, but I know a lot of reptile stores actually carry tarantulas, and you should be able to find some. Now you got your tarantula, your enclosure. Congratulations, you can call yourself a tarantula keeper. From now on, you only need to feed them about once a week, make sure they have clean water, then you're all set. So this video was just my own personal experience with keeping tarantulas so far. I'm also pretty new to the hobby as well, so if you have any suggestions or tips, feel free to leave them in the comment below. I'll see you next time. So most people when they first start thinking about getting their tarantula, So most people when they first start